So now we'll start with the superscalar processor. So again it is coming under advanced microprocessor architecture or microarchitecture. Right? So superscalar processor is one of the technique used for speeding up the processing. So what do you mean by superscalar processor? Superscalar processor contains multiple copies of data path hardware to execute multiple instructions simultaneously. Right? So superscalar processor consists of multiple copies of the data path hardware so that it can execute multiple instructions simultaneously. So in this figure, you can see that initially there is an instruction memory. So in this figure, the instruction from the instruction memory, two instructions are read at the same time. Two instructions are read from the instruction memory at the same time. Then it is given to a register file. So what is the speciality of this register file? This is containing 6 ports. So what are the 6 ports? 4 read ports are there, 2 write ports are there. Normally in a register file you will be having 2 read and 1 write port, that is a 3 port register file. But here since you are reading 2 instructions from the instruction memory simultaneously, we are taking into a register file which is having 6 ports, that is 4 reads and 2 writes. And from the register file we are taking the instructions to 2 separate ALUs because 2 separate functionality has to be done. Finally, the result can be either stored on the data memory or it can be written back to the register file. So since if you want to store 2 results in the data memory, we are using 2 ported register file. 2 ported register file here means here we are considering a data memory with a single read port and single write port normally. But here we are using 2 ported register file, 2 ported data memory. 2 port means 2 read and 2 write ports will be there. Normally 1 read and 1 write will be there. But since you are reading 2 instructions simultaneously, we are storing the result onto a data memory which is having 2 read and 2 write ports. And if you are not using the data memory for storing the result, these data can be taken back to the register file and can be written to the register file. So for doing that, two separate multiplexers are also there for selecting the two separate outputs to the register file. So this is an example for a two-way superscalar data path which is implemented in a superscalar processor. So here the data path fetches two instructions at a time from the instruction memory. It is having 6 ported register file, that is 4 read port and 2 write ports. Then it also contains 2 ALUs and a 2 ported data memory. Why it is known as 2 ported data memory? Normally we will be having single port data memory where it will have 1 read and 1 write. But here 2 ported data memory means 2 read and 2 write ports will be there. So this is an example for superscalar processor. Next, so let us take one example program like this. So let us say this is a program. So this is a diagram showing the pipeline of superscalar architecture. Pipeline implemented in a superscalar processor. So here we are using again two-way superscalar architecture where pipeline is implemented. So we can see that this is a program, and since it is a two-way superscalar processor, two instruction will be fetched at a particular cycle. So each cycle you can see in cycle 1, 2 instruction will be fetched. Cycle 2 also 2 instruction will be fetched. Cycle 3 also 2 instruction will be fetched. Right? And here we are considering 5-stage pipeline. What are those 5 stages? First cycle is known as fetch stage, where the instruction is fetched. Second cycle, it is known as the decode state or decode stage, where the decoding will be done and corresponding operands will be identified. Then in the third cycle, it is an execute stage where the execution of the operations will be done on the LUs. Fourth stage, it is memory access stage. So in the fourth stage, we can either store the result or store the result on the data memory or load the result from the data memory, right? Both load and store from or to the data memory is done in the memory access stage. And the last stage, fifth stage, is known as write back stage, where the result will be stored onto the or written onto the register file. So in the second stage, you are reading from the register file. Fifth stage, you are writing to the register file, right? So the reading will be done in the second half cycle, so that this second portion is shown in gray color. Writing will be done in the first half cycle, so that in the first half cycle portion, it is shown in gray color. So this is how a normal superscalar processor is working. So for this program, the processor has cycles per instruction as 0.5. Why cycles per instruction is 0.5? Because simultaneously two instructions are fetched. So two instructions are executed in a single cycle on an average. Since two instructions are fetched, on an average, two instructions will be executed in a single cycle. That is why clock cycles per instruction is 0.5. And normally, we will not be calling it as CPI, we will be calling it as IPC. IPC means what? Instructions per cycle. So instructions per cycle is, it can be considered as a reciprocal of clock cycles per instruction. So what is the instruction per cycle for this superscalar architecture? It will be 2. That is, 2 instructions will be executed in a cycle. 2 instructions will be executed in a cycle. So the instructions per cycle is 2. Then this is a diagram showing the data dependency for the pipeline architecture which is implemented on a superscalar processor. Because in the first diagram, we have taken a program where dependency is not there. That means the input and output is not dependent upon each other. But in this program, you can see that there are certain dependencies. What are the dependencies? Let us take the first line, LDR R8, R0, #40. LDR R8, R0, #40. Next instruction is add R9, R8, R1. So what does it mean? This R8 should execute only after the first instruction is over. When the first instruction is over, content of this memory location, which is obtained as a result of adding R0 and 40, content of that will be stored onto R8. Content of this memory location will be stored onto R8. And in the second instruction, what you are doing, content of this R8, which is generated in the previous step, and the content of R1 will be added together, result will be taken back to R9, right? So for executing this instruction, R8 should have the value which is computed from the first statement. So first of all, you need to execute the first statement, then only R8 will be getting the correct value, so that you can execute the second instruction. So here you are having a data dependency. Why? Because this second instruction is dependent upon the data which is generated in the first step. So this is known as the data dependency. But in the previous program, you can see there is no data dependency. So here LDR R8, R0, #40. So what does it mean? In the first cycle, fetching of these two instructions will be taking place. So what is the instruction 1? You are going to load the content of this location. You are loading the content of this location to R8. So in the decode state, it has identified the registers on which the operation has to be performed. So in the first case, you are first of all you need to add these two. R0 plus hash 40, because R0 will be containing base address, 40 will be the offset. Right. So you can see in cycle 2, for the first operation, R0 is identified as first operand, 40 is identified as a second operand. Then these two are given to an ALU where addition is performed. So R0 and 40 will be added together. Then what you need to do? You got a resultant value, and the content of that memory location should be loaded to R8. That means you need to access the data memory which is having this address. So what will happen? This resultant address will be given to the data memory, and the content of this resultant location, content of this resultant address location which is present in data memory will be stored onto R8 or will be loaded onto R8. So the writing back of the result in R8 is done in fifth cycle. Similarly, since two instructions were taken, second instruction was also decoded parallelly, and here R1 and R2 was taken as the two operands, identified as two operands. It will be given to the ALU where addition is performed. R1 plus R2 is done. Then what you need to do? Here we don't have any memory access. Right? Memory access is not at all required. The resultant of this operation should be stored to R9. So what will happen? In the fourth cycle, memory access is not done here. So this stage will be bypassed through this line. Instead of going to data memory, through this line, the output of R1, addition of R1 and R2 will be taken, and it will be written on to the register file. In which register? R9. Right. So data memory access is not required here because the resultant is written back to R9. Similarly, in this case also, what you are doing? You are subtracting R1 minus R3, resultant you are taking to R10. Right. So here it has identified as R1 and R3 for the first operand, for the first operation, R3 and R4 for the second operation. So what is the first operation? R1 minus R3. So that is done here. Second instruction or second operation is R3 and R4. So that operation is done here. And both the resultant need not have any data memory access. So both the resultant will bypass this stage and will be stored onto R10 and R11 respectively. So in both the cases you can see that there is no data dependency, because here you are adding R0 and 40, content of that you are taking to R8. Here you are adding R1 and R2, content you are taking to R9. Similarly, in this cycle, R1 and R3 is subtracted, resultant is taken to R10. R3 and R4 is ANDed, resultant is taken to R11. Similarly, this also will take place. So here in the first cycle, OR operation will take place as you have seen here. In the second part, what will be done? What is the second operation? Store. So first of all, you need to add R0 and 80. So R0 and 80 is added here, and the data which is present in R5 should be stored onto the memory address present in the data memory. Which memory address? Which is a resultant of adding R0 and 80. So here again data memory access is there. So what you are doing? You are reading the content of R5. That content you are storing to this. So from where you will get the content of R5? From the register file. From the register file, you will be getting the R5 content. From here, you will be getting the R5 content from the register file. That to that the content of R5 you are writing to the address pointed by R0 plus 80. So you are writing the resultant, the content of R5 to particular address present in D5. What content you are writing? Content of R5 you are writing to this. So here in this case only one instruction is writing to the register file, second instruction is not doing any operation on the register file because it is performing the data memory write or store. So that is why only half of the register file is shown in gray color, because only the first instruction is using the or writing the result to R12 of register file. Second instruction is not performing any write on the register file. That is why half portion is not shown in gray. Right. So in this example, there is no dependency between the inputs or outputs. But in this diagram, what you are seeing is there is dependency. Here you can see the add and LDR, both these instructions are dependent on R8. Sub and they are dependent on R8 again. OR and store, again it is dependent on R11. So if it is dependent like this, how the operation will be done? The first cycle or the first instruction will be executed like this. And why here only one instruction is fetched? Even though you are using superscalar architecture, only one instruction is fetched in this program. Why? Because of this dependency. So after executing the LDR, then only the next instruction can be executed. That is why both these instructions are not accessed simultaneously in the first cycle. That decision will be taken by the superscalar architecture based on the data dependency. So first of all, this instruction will be executed, right? So in decode stage, R0 and 40 will be added. Then the content of that resultant memory location will be written to R8. So this much portion we have seen in the last slide. So only one instruction is taken, next instruction is not taken. So those logic will not be used in this case. Then in the second cycle, what will happen? Two instructions will be taken because these two instructions are not dependent. Only AND and LDR is dependent. AND and sub is not dependent or it is independent. So both the instructions will be taken in. And in the decode stage, for the first instruction, it has identified that R8 and R1 was the operands. So R8 you have already calculated from here. The data present in this address location has been stored onto R8. So the content of R8 and the content of R1 will be given to the ALU. But normally the process will be done like that. From here, in the next stage, it should be execute stage. Right? So R8 and R1 will be given to the execute stage. But here what is the problem? We have seen in one of the lecture, CPU stalling will take place or pipeline stalling will take place. Why? Because in this third stage, R8 data is not available. Because what will be the resultant of R8? What will be present in R8? Whatever data is present in this resultant address should be loaded from the memory location to R8. So the content of this memory location should be loaded from data memory to R8. So the data will be present in R8 only after data memory access stage is over. Because since you are performing load operation, content of R8 will be proper only after load operation or data access or data memory access stage is over, right? But in the cycle, you need to get the R8 here for performing the execution stage. But since R8 is available only in cycle 5, that is after the data memory access is over, the execution of these two statements cannot be performed here. So what will happen? The execute stage of these two instructions will be taken to the fifth cycle instead of keeping it in the fourth cycle. So what will happen? That is known as pipeline stalling. So the previous decode stage itself will be stalled to the fourth cycle. And when it is reaching the fifth cycle, R8 is available from the previous instruction because it has the data memory access state is over. So R8 will be forwarded from previous instruction to this instruction. This is known as forwarding. This also we have seen. So R8 in the fifth cycle will be loaded from LDR instruction or will be forwarded from LDR instruction to AND instruction. So now in the fifth stage, R8 is available. R1 is already available because you are directly reading from register file. Then addition can be performed, and since it is an add operation, data memory access is not there. The result is taken back to or stored to R9. Then subtract will be happening. R2 and R3 will be taken. And since the CPU's the execution stage has been stalled in fourth cycle, again the same thing will be happening. Same the decode stage will be happening here. Then R3 and R2 will be taken to the ALU present in fifth cycle. Resultant will be returned to R8. So actually, if this data dependency was not there, this execution stage has to be executed in the fourth cycle, and the data memory access will be taken in fifth cycle. The register file writing will be done in sixth cycle, right? So because of this data dependency, the fourth cycle has been stalled. So the execution cycle will be done only in the fifth stage due to the data dependency. Similarly, in this also, so the fourth instruction is add. So this add and or again there is no dependency though, so it will be executed in the third stage, third cycle. And here you can see that R8 used in AND will be available only after the subtraction instruction execution is over. So here at which stage the subtraction will be over or you will get the result? Only after execution stage. In the case of load instruction, the result will be available after the data memory access stage. But in the arithmetic operations or logical operations, result will be available after the execution stage itself. Your R8 will be available after the execution stage. So according to the timing diagram, in the sixth cycle, that is after fifth cycle, the R8 is available. So R8 can be taken to the execution stage. Normally what will happen? The decoding will be done. In this case, decoding should be done in fourth cycle. But since R8 is available only here, and already the CPU stall has taken place. Whenever CPU stall is taking place in a particular cycle, whichever stages are present in that cycle, all the stages of all the instructions will be stalled. So if you are having 5 instructions with the different stages of pipeline here, all those pipeline should have to perform this stall. So even though these two instructions has been taken, this also will be stalled. That means the previous instruction, previous stage, that is fetch stage, will be executed here also. Right. In the previous instruction, the register, the decode stage will be executed here. In this instruction, fetch stage will be executed or which will be performed in again for one more time. After that, decoding will take place. Now after the decoding, what should happen? R4 and R8 should be added. R8 is available here. So from the sub instruction, R8 is forwarded to AND instruction. R8 is forwarded because the result is available after the execution stage. So R8 is forwarded, R4 is also available. Both are added. Again, since it is a logical operation, result will be taken to R10. Then similarly, OR operation also will be performed. Then in the last stage, store should be performed, but again there is a dependency of R11 between store and OR. And where will be the R11 available? R11 will be available only after the execution stage of OR operation. So according to this timing diagram, This is the execution stage of 4. After the execution stage, R11 is available. So for the store operation, stalling need not be done. Why? Because store instruction will be fetched only in 5th cycle. In the 6th cycle, decoding will take place, and in 7th cycle only execution will take place. But in the 7th cycle itself, the content of R11 is forwarded from OR to store. So in the 7th cycle itself, R11 is available. Then 80 is also available. So the resultant can be calculated and content of R7 can be stored onto the resultant memory location. So for this instruction, stalling is not required. Why? Because the output of R11 is available in the same cycle. So this is a problem related with the data dependency. So due to the data dependency, this pipeline stalling has to be performed. So first of all, I told add and LDR, both add and LDR instructions are dependent on R8. Right, we have seen before. So add instruction will stall for one more cycle. Add instruction will be stalling so that LDR can forward the result from R8 from LDR to add. So this was the first operation which has taken place. So in the first cycle, only load was executed or load was taken by the superscalar processor. Why? Because of this dependency. Then in the second cycle, two operations were taken. Because it is a two-way superscalar processor, two instructions were taken. There is a dependency between sub and AND. This sub and AND, there is a dependency again on R8. Similarly, between OR and store, again there is data dependency on R11. In both the cases, so in this case, CPU stalling has already taken place. So AND also will be executed. One stalling will be happening. Then in the last cycle, for the execution of last instruction, stalling is not required. Because in the 7th stage itself, the result of R11 is there. R11 can be taken to store instruction in the 7th cycle itself. Right? So this was a problem caused due to data dependency in the case of superscalar processor. This program requires 5 cycles to issue 6 instructions. Total 6 instructions are there. So due to a data dependency problem, 5 cycles were required to issue these 6 instructions. So what will be the instruction per cycle? 6 instructions by 5 cycle. Instruction per cycle will be 1.2. Right? But in the case of program where the data dependency is not there, so here again 6 instructions are there. But how many cycles we have taken for issuing this 6? Only 3 cycles were taken for issuing. So what will be the IPC? 6 by 3. Total 6 instructions divided by 3 cycles. So 6 by 3, you will be getting 2. So that is how IPC is calculated as 2. But due to the data dependency problem, in this case, 6 cycles were issued in 5 cycles. So 6 by 5 IPC instructions per cycle will be 1.2. So next we will go on to the parallelism which is implemented in the superscalar processor. When we are discussing about the parallelism, there are two types of parallelism. One is known as temporal parallelism, another one is spatial parallelism. Temporal parallelism, how it is implemented? By using pipeline. So parallelism in the time axis. So it is implemented in pipeline. And the spatial parallelism, it is implemented by having multiple execution units. So that two or more instruction can be fetched and executed simultaneously. So that is part of spatial parallelism. And temporal parallelism is implemented using pipeline. So in the superscalar processor, both the parallelisms are there, both the temporal and spatial. because it is having multiple execution units and pipeline implemented. So superscalar processor exploit both the type of parallelism so that performance will be greater than a single cycle and a multi-cycle processor. So performance of superscalar processor will be more than single and multi-cycle because parallelism has been incorporated. So the commercial process will be having 3, 4 or even 6-way superscalar processor. 6-way means 6 instructions will be taken parallelly. But you need to keep in mind they need to handle the control hazards such as branches and the data hazard. Both the control and the data hazard should be handled by it if it is having more way superscalar architecture. And the real programs will be having many dependencies. So wide superscalar processor will be rarely utilizing all the execution units. Because here you can see that in the first cycle, the half only one instruction has been taken. Second instruction was not executed. So the half of the portion of the execution unit was not utilized. Only one instruction was taken. Second portion or the second set of hardware was not utilized. So if you are having more wide superscalar processor, more number of execution units may not be utilized. So that also it should be kept in mind while designing more scalar or wider superscalar process. Then large number of execution units and complex forwarding networks will consume more power whenever you are having multiple execution units and when the complex networks are there for forwarding, because in the case of 6-way superscalar architecture more complex forwarding has to be done because 6 instruction will be taken parallelly. So there will be forwarding from say at least 2 or 3 instructions. So the forwarding network become more complex. So whenever the forwarding network is getting complex and more execution units are there, power consumed will be more. So that also should be kept in mind. So we cannot keep on increasing the width of the superscalar architecture because power is one of the most important criteria. That is why we are not having more wider superscalar processor.